Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I joined in late. The network was pretty bad. We'll be doing facility project management. Just give me a minute. Let me sort out something. I'll be back. The core of facility project management is to be able to give you a base because as facility managers, you handle a lot of small pockets of projects in your several facilities, or for those that are just venturing into facility management, and that's part of what you do as you go ahead. Straight up, starting up by way of introduction, is what is a project. Generally, a project defined as a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. A project is a temporary endeavor, any temporary task that you undertake and to create a unique product, a unique service, and result. A project is temporary. A project does not last forever. It's actually temporary in that it has a defined beginning and end time. Any set of activities that you do that has a defined time of beginning and end time is a project. And once it has a defined beginning and end time, it therefore we have a defined scope and also work within some level of resources. That's talking about a project. A project is unique as it's available for anybody to take as all. It's not a routine activity that happens. But a specific set of operations that is designed to get a singular goal. Now, a project normally will comprise of a project team, which often includes people who are not necessarily from the same geographical region or the same organization. A project can be handled in different parts because you have different components of a project, which you are going to see. A project is temporary. These are the characteristics of a project, which I think you should note. It's temporary, is unique, has a start, has an end, and has scope, which defines the work and the quality that needs to be done, has stakeholders that work around the project, has resources and material, which refers to people and materials, and has a budget, which refers to the cost. We'll see how that plays out as we go into the meat of the discussion of what a project is. Project management process falls into 5 broad groups. You have the initiating process, you have the planning process, you have executing process, you have the monitoring and control, and also closing. All this cumulates into what a project it actually is. Now, project is a unique set of activities that gives you a unique result, that gives you a set of results or outcome. Project management is harnessing the necessary resources to ensure that the project is successful. The project management is the harnessing of resources together to be able to achieve the project goals and objectives. That's the summary of what project management is. Project planning, planning a project. When you are planning a project, there are some things that you need to put or bring to bear. Some questions you may need to ask yourself as you begin to plan a project is why. Why do you want this project? What is the intention for the project? Where do you want it? When do you want to do it? And how do you want to get it done? And what project are you even talking about? And who are you doing it for? These are questions you normally will ask yourself. The why, where, when, how, what, and who. One of the things you must do when you are starting a project to plan a project, you must identify the project stakeholders. Who are the project stakeholders? Project stakeholders, one of them is the sponsor, project sponsor, the person that bets the project and ensure the project will go through its process from start to finish. Not necessarily part of the main activity, somebody that just wants to ensure that the project is completed due to the fact that the person may be, or this group of persons may be the ones that birth the idea of the project in the first instance. The receiver of the project deliverables, those that will receive the project deliverables after it has been completed. Then also the users of the project outcome. When the project is completed, the users of that project, they are also part of the stakeholders. Then also the project manager, that is yourself, and the team, they are all part of the project stakeholders. When planning a project, another thing you need to do is to establish project goals and deliverables such that you understand what you are doing at every point in time. You need to get ahead to know exactly what needs to be done. Sorry, can you hear me? I just got a message that my volume is not loud enough. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Sorry, I didn't introduce myself. My name is O.C. Egbia here. I'm an architect. And for those of us that are in the class, I think on Monday, I took the class on Monday. So I'm the same person that is taking the class today. I hope that's fine. So we can just keep that protocol. Sorry, I didn't do that when we started. I just jumped into the class because I was running late. Okay, we've talked about the project stakeholders. I say that project should have goals and deliverables. The project must have tasks, the tasks that are scheduled. Now, a project manager should be able to do some things. Now, having know what the project is, know the parameters for project management and the different stages or groups, the broad headings that project works in. Now we need to understand what a project manager does and his key responsibilities. One of the things that the project manager would do is to define clear and attainable project objectives and project goals. He needs to define these things and know, okay, this is the project that we're about to do. This is how we are going to get there. This is the breakdown of what we need to do to achieve the project deliverables, to achieve the project objective, to ensure that the project comes out as at when due. Must be able to define the project by reducing it to a set of manageable tasks. The project manager should be able to break down the project into bits and pieces and be able to put it into manageable tasks that everybody can see it and be able to understand what is going on in the project. Peradventure, you are building, let's say, a one-bedroom bungalow. You cannot say you are building a one-bedroom bungalow without understanding what it takes to build it. You know there will be civil work, so you need masons. You're going to be reinforcement work, so you need a iron bender. There will be carpentry work, so you need a carpenter. There will be electrical work, you need an electrician. There will be some mechanical work, you need a plumber and all that. So the people that you bring together to ensure that the project goes from start to finish, those are the things that the project manager must understand. The project manager also should be able to sequence the work to know what comes first at every particular point in time so that you don't have confusion. You cannot just bring all the people that are to work with the project to site at the same time. Once you do that, some persons will be redundant and therefore you'll be amassing unnecessary cost on the project because you didn't plan properly. One of the things that the project manager should do as a skill must have communication skill, must be able to communicate the project objectives to the stakeholders. The project manager also must be able to procure the necessary tools and materials that are required for the project. The project manager also should be able to manage the project constraint. The project manager should be able to inform stakeholders of the work progress regularly by means of producing the progress report for the project, either bi-weekly or every month. The project manager should be able to assess, monitor, and mitigate against risks that are associated with the project. The project manager must be able to adopt and manage changes as they arise in the project. The project manager must also be able to determine and implement the needs of the client, because the project manager actually is the custodian of the project document and the project Bible. Some of the skills that the project manager will require. The project manager should be top-notch with conflict management skills, because conflict normally will arise in a project, and the project manager should be up and doing in being able to manage conflicts as they arise in the project. Project manager should also be a people manager, must be able to manage people, must have people management skill. Project manager must also must have leadership and must also be result oriented. Project manager must be quick and apt in problem solving and in creative thinking. The project manager must also be able to plan and organize the project as its peer. The project manager must be able to be a good time manager, must be able to manage time for the project adequately to ensure there are no waste of time and having total time overshoot in the project. The project manager must also have the skill for contract management, must be able to put an eye on the contract, understand all the clauses in the contract to ensure that the contract goes as planned. The project manager also must have good negotiation skills, because the project manager from time to time will negotiate deals within the project and ensure that things go the way it should go. Project management procedures. One of the project management procedures that we have is project initiation. This is the time that the project is birthed. And once you are betting the project, once the dream of the project is coming up, you need to understand everything that has to do to make the project work. And it is at that time that you take a decision of go or no go. You must first of all define the purpose of the project, the different options to be considered in executing the project, or to ensure that the project is successful when the decision has been taken. Also must be able to evaluation of an alternative method of carrying out the project, and then choose the particular one that is good enough, that will be cheaper and faster to ensure that the project is delivered. Also must look at the benefits of the project. Also look at the possible disadvantages of the project. It is when the advantages actually outweigh the disadvantage that the project will be looked as viable. Must also be able to appraise the costs and the investment of the project. Must be able to summarize the potential risks that are associated with the project. Project management structure, we've talked a little bit about that. One of the things you need to understand in project management is that the roles and the responsibility must be defined and accepted by the project team and the sponsor. The project key role includes the project sponsor and the project manager and his team. You must prepare a project brief, which must consist of the project plan, risk assessment, and project closure modalities. Project triangle, which is referred to as a triple constraint. Once everything about the project has been agreed, the cost has been agreed, the scope has been agreed, the time for delivery has been agreed, and the quality has been agreed, immediately that agreement is signed, an equilateral triangle is formed, which is called the triple constraint. And once that is done, if you touch any part of any aspect of that project, it will affect the project deliverable. If you increase the scope of the project, it will affect the cost and also affect the time. If you reduce the scope of the project, it will affect the cost, it will affect the time. If you increase the cost or reduce the cost of the project, it will affect the time and affect the scope. If you try to either reduce the time of the project, it will affect the scope, it will affect the cost. And all these three elements, whichever one you touch, will also affect the quality of delivery that comes out of the project. One of the things you must know is that a good project, the scoping of the project is very critical to the deliverable of the, to the project deliverable. A project that is badly scoped will definitely have either cost or time overrun. You are likely to overshoot your budget once the project is not properly scoped. No matter how small the project is, scoping is very important in the aspects of project management. Scoping is very important because it is the scoping that will determine your cost. It is the scoping that will also determine the time that you will use to execute the project. A project that is badly scoped will definitely have cost overrun. And the time of scoping is good, normally happens during the period of planning. The phases of the project, you have the definition and initiation phase. That's where you define the project and what it needs to do. You have the planning phase. The planning phase of a project is where you should spend the most of the time when planning the project. It is the most important part of the project. When you spend most of the time planning, at the time of execution, it's a lot easier. When a project is badly planned, the execution is going to be very difficult to do. And there, when you have difficulty in the place of execution, you are sure to have cost and time overrun. You are sure to have cost and time overrun. Another aspect of the project that is also needs to watch out is the project monitoring and control. Project monitoring and control, and also project closure. It's just not enough for you to start the project. You must be able to close the project when it starts. Project barriers. One of the things that are barriers in project that you must run away from is one, misunderstanding between yourself and the project team, or between yourself and the client, or between the project team and the client, between the contractor, the vendor, and the client, or between yourself and the client. These are things that most misunderstanding may come up, and it's always good for you to avoid that by all means. And once you try to avoid that, the only way to avoid that is to avoid poor communication. Poor communication. Also avoid poor management. Avoid personality conflicts. You must be as professional as possible so that you are actually detaching your personal thinking or ambition on the project away from the project deliverable, just as much as possible to be very professional when you are running the project. As much as possible, you must avoid disagreements in the project, and you must state clearly the project goals and objectives. You must state clearly the project goals and objectives. Another thing that probably if you look at avoiding is bad weather in project, which a lot of us can't do anything about, but you can plan around that to ensure that works are not done that would be so bad during the bad weather. The harshness of weather when it comes to construction in Nigeria is rainy season, and we know that rainy season will always come. It is news when there is no rainy season, so it's not news when the rain is falling. In between July, rather between as from March, April, all the way to August or September, there's always something that should happen. Ensure the following do not occur in your project. As much as possible, you must ensure that customers' expectations are not being met. You must avoid that by all costs. You must avoid exceeding the project budget, exceeding the project timeline, and using inconsistent procedure and processes for doing the project. Avoid significant amount of overtime as much as possible on projects. Avoid waste of time and resources. Unforeseen external and internal events. That means you must plan properly, do all your forecasts to ensure that you do not have any shocker as the project continues. Define project. So define a project. One of the things you must do is to form a project team. Depends on the type of project, all the necessary team. If you're talking building project, I'm an architect, so it's easier for me to talk about building project. For building project, you must get all the building team. I just mentioned something. You want to do a one-bedroom and bungalow apartment or thereabout. You need an architect, you need a structural engineer, you need an electrical engineer, mechanical engineer, and also you need the artisans, you need the iron benders, you need the bricklayers, you need the carpenters to do all the work, you need painters, you need aluminum persons for the windows, you need the furniture guys for the door production and for the furniture, a lot of people that you need. All those persons that work in the project are all referred to as the project team, both the consultants and the contractors and even the vendors. Project customers' needs. You must ensure you document all the project customers' needs. Is very important so that you know exactly what the project is, the customer needs, and when you are hitting them, you know exactly what you are hitting. Develop a project charter and also develop a project roadmap, which will consist of the Gantt chart and know where the project starts and how the project will be executed, which actually gives the sequencing of what's the project and what is supposed to be done. The first step to undertake a project is to define the goals and objectives, the set of the steps required to achieve the project goals and objectives. And in defining project goals and objectives, you must ensure that you describe the project outcome, and you must make sure that the objectives are SMART. That is, they are specific, they are measurable, they are achievable, realistic, and they are time-bound. Must be concise and clear, be accepted by the project stakeholders, and provide a definite description of the project and what the project is supposed to address. That's supposed to happen on the project objective. When defining project objectives, separate goals from objectives. Goals are broad statements of the project. Goals are the what of the project. A project may have more than one goal, but have also several objectives per goal. Objectives are specific statements that suppose the goal. The objectives are the how of the project process, the how of the project process. Consider the following when defining a project. We have talked about the what and the how, which talks about the goal and the objective. Talk about the time frame that it's going to take for the project to be executed, expected outcome of the project. What's the product that is coming out of the project, and when is it coming? Criteria for achieving the expected outcome, and ways of measuring the expected outcome. What are the criteria you look out for? If you want to produce bottled water, what are the things you will know when the bottled water is completed? That is what we are talking about. What are the factors that you have put in place that what you are bringing out is not just water, it is clean and distilled water. So going through the process of both the manufacturing of the bottles that the bottled water will be capped into and the water itself, all that process to ensure that everything happens, you must ensure it takes step by step and the whole thing done. And so to ensure that you have clean outcome in terms of the finishes of what the project is. Define project purpose. State the purpose of the project. What is the purpose of the project? To produce the bottled water. Why are you producing? Is it just for fun or to make people taste and feel that they can have well-packaged bottled water close to them, or what? Whatever it is, you need to state it out. Link the purpose to the organization and goals and objective. Also define the purpose helps. Define the purpose helps in predicting problems and also helps in proper planning and controlling of project activities. Perform programming involves managing other related projects. When we're talking about program, we're talking about a larger project that consists of several small projects. And the whole broad thing is called a program. Involves selecting projects and adjusting the speed at which they run. Involve adjusting project scope, maximizing the objectives of the entire project portfolio, and helps to create outcome while the project deliverable delivers its outcome. Project scope statement, developing project scope statement. Define the objective and deliverables of the project. That's very important when you are preparing a project scope statement. And also is developed by the project team. It is the project team that normally define that project, that provides the scope, describes the scope, the acceptance criteria, the deliverables of the project, the constraints and assumptions where there are any. Project scope involves determining a project specific goal, task deliverables, deadline and costs, and resources. Clarifying project parameters and limitations. Set project duration. Estimating the duration of each work activity is very important. Integrating all activities into a project schedule. Duration is set based on availability of resources. You cannot just wake up and put duration of the project off your head. You must either be experienced in running that type of project and then you get the duration from there, or you get it based on the resources that you have. Components of considering the setting of duration, the time delays, physical processes, work performance by people, work performance by non-human resources, machines and equipment, and the type of resources required. Work breakdown structure. The organization of project work into manageable sections is what is referred to as the work breakdown structure. The composition of the work activities into smaller components to be able to make you understand the breakdown of how the project will be carried out, making complex projects more manageable by breaking them into smaller tasks. Breaking those tasks into smaller bits is referred to as the work breakdown structure. Also help in developing a project schedule and budget used to identify potential risks in a project. Structure of creating a work breakdown structure helps to assign roles and responsibilities. It also helps to make accurate estimated estimation of costs, time, and risks. Shows project milestones and control points. Also help with accurate organization of the project. Helps with proper explanation of the project scope and stakeholders. Human resources planning involves the identification and the documentation of all the roles and responsibilities of the project team, as it were. All the people that will be working with you in the project team, they must all have that JD, that job descriptions, the roles and the responsibilities. Reporting relationship for the project. How do these people report? The technicians and all that report to a particular foreman. The foreman will now be the one to report to the assistant project managers, and then those ones also now report to the project managers. The staff management plan, which gives a breakdown of what the different staffs will be doing. Also define the process of acquiring resources and the process and the period each resources will be required, and the requirements for training, as it were, when the project is going. Estimating cost. Serves as a guide in ensuring that the funds available are sufficient to complete the project. You must have that cost in view to know exactly how much it will take to complete the project. Normally, this is prepared by the quantity surveyors or the cost managers for any project. Helps to see whether the needed funds are available to support the project. Also enables comparison with of an anticipated benefits against anticipated costs. Identify if the people is the project, sorry, is viable. You have some costs in project. You have the direct cost, which talks about the salaries and all that, the cost for materials, equipment supply, transportation, and also have the indirect cost, which refers to administrative costs and general overhead. Development of project management plan, a document that outlines the project execution, control, and monitoring part of the project, defines the execution approach, uses the documents all used to document all the assumptions for the project. Project planning. Facilitation of stakeholders communication. That is used. That's the project management plan is actually used. Is used to document all the assumptions in the project, all the assumptions that has been made, and to communicate to the stakeholders as is required for every project. A project management plan should address the following. What is the problem addressed by the project? What are the project deliverables? Who will be involved in the project? What is the project team's responsibility? And what the project timeline is very important to be defined as the project kicks off. Leading the project delivery team. The project manager actually leads the project team and should learn how to manage without authority. The project manager should be able to manage the project in such a manner that he doesn't need to exert so much authority. Have an understanding of how to motivate the people to ensure that the people keep working. The project manager should be able to motivate his people so that they know what to do at a particular time. Project management must not want to discourage his people, must ensure that the project team stays motivated and also increase the knowledge of each of the project team member by means of exposure or possible training. Increase each team member's ability to make decisions by giving them responsibility and also trust and means the project team members to ensure that they trust themselves and they can work together as a team. The project manager also should be able to manage risks as it comes. Because all projects have risks. Common risks in a project are unexpected reduction in budget. Just wake up one day and they say don't have funds to fund the project again. Project manager, you will go look for money, we don't have money to run the project. That's a risk. Roles and responsibilities when they're not clear or not clearly defined, especially from the part of the stakeholders. Stakeholders' input not obtained. Stakeholders' input not obtained. Slow customer feedback review. Once you do not get the customer feedback properly, you not review it very well, it is going to cause problem for the project. Stakeholders making adjustments to the project requirements. That's a risk. And also poor communication generally from the stakeholders to the project manager and the project team is also a risk. Very optimistic cost and time estimation for the project once the project team, or rather the client or the sponsors, become overly ambitious, something that naturally would take, let's say, 2 months. They want you to achieve it within 2 weeks. You know that that's a risk. And if you're into that kind of project, you know that you're going to have issues, serious issues. Stakeholders needs not fully understood. When the needs of the stakeholders are not understood, the project is a failure already. When that means the stakeholders, the clients, did not communicate their needs properly. Stakeholders adding new requirements as the project goes for, the stakeholders will just wake up and start adding things into the project. Steps to manage project risks. One, you must have risk management should be part of the project plan. You must prepare a risk management plan which shows the level of risk, how to manage the risk itself. Early identification of risks in the project. Risks should be communicated to all parties involved. Put precautionary measures in place to mitigate against risks. Consider, review, identify the risks, threats, and opportunities. It is very important that this is done in the aspect of projects. One of the things you must also do, you must also assign risk owners, those that will be watching the risks. Prioritize risks depend on the risk metrics. Risks should be closely analyzed from time to time, especially in your project meetings. Plan and implement response to risks as it arises. A risk register should always be kept. Plan versus process. Process monitoring. Involves monitoring and tracking the process of the project schedule. That's project monitoring. Also help in identifying variance in the project baseline. The project baseline you look at, at a particular time, maybe you start a project sometime in January and you're supposed to conclude, let's say, in July. And this is February. Your baseline in the project already shows what you are doing. But as you go ahead in the project, when you get to sometime in July, you compare where you are supposed to be in the project, and then also where the project actually is at that time. And then you know exactly what it is. I know the variance between the project baseline and the actual timeline in the project. Also helps in keeping the project within scope, budget, and on time. Helps in identifying when there is a significant deviation in the project timeline. That's what monitoring does. We provide early indication of problems with the project activities coordination. Also cost overrun, resource conflicts when you are monitoring properly. Steps to monitoring project plan versus process. Create a project baseline. That is a given. Communicate that baseline so that everybody knows exactly what the target is. The project budget management. A project budget provides an understanding of how funds should be realized and expended for the project, how the funds are going to come in. It's normally stated in the project budget, and also how the thing will be expended. A lot of people know exactly how it will be expended, but sometimes we will take our eyes off how the project normally will fund itself. The work breakdown structure is the basis for the project budget, which I've mentioned, which works in tandem with proper scoping. A project budget can be properly maintained through continuous project forecasts. Your eyes must be on the project and see how the budget forecast is. If you are doing the work, you know exactly, January I need like 2 million naira. By February, I'll be needing another 10 million naira. So while you are January, you already know you are needing 10 million, you may need like 10 million now for the work in February. You already make that forecast so that the client will begin to make available that funds to ensure that the project is running. Regular forecast of resource usage, the resource that you use for the project, proper scope management, keeping project team informed at every point in time concerning the progress of the project. Closing the project and client sign off. The sign off by the client. The client sign off a work completion certificate is very important. That at the close of the project, the client will sign off the work completion certificate. And after the project outcome has been measured against the criteria of acceptance, that is when the client signs off. If you have to produce 20 bottled water, immediately you produce 20 bottled water and it is delivered to the client, you provide a certificate that says, oh, this thing has been completed, kindly sign. And once the criteria has been met, they will sign it. The work completion certificate records information such that any other comment about the project, the success criteria of the project, the key metrics to be tracked, and high-level lesson learned from the project. Project commissioning and handover. This involves checking, inspecting, and testing. Take note of those three words: checking, inspecting, and testing. Applicable to all project phases. You must not wait till the final completion of the project before you do your checking, testing, inspecting, and testing. You can do it at every stage of the project so that by the time you get to the final bus stop, you know that you have already covered a lot of the commissioning aspect of the project. The objective of project commissioning is to ensure a safe and orderly handover of the project and also guarantee the project's operability in terms of safety, performance, and reliability. Project analysis. The process of determining the real situation of the project and also helps to find out whether the project is operated properly or otherwise. After the completion of a project, confirm whether the project has become successful to achieve its objective, identify and resolve any issues that may arise during the project operation, that is when the project is being used, evaluate the project successes or failures, determine on what has been done, determine if the expected objective were successful or also achieved. The following are reviewed at the project analysis stage. Achievement of the project objective, was it achieved? Proper utilization of resources, were the resources properly utilized? Saving of resources, you save the resources as it were? The usefulness of the decision taken and the services delivered. Index the project file. Project file is also a very important component in project management. You need to properly file the project, file the correspondence in the project and the project documentation. That project index filing establish a project filing structure at the project startup stage. The type of filing system depends on the project size, whether it's a big project or a small project. A simple singular file may be used for a small project, while a file numbering system may be used for large projects. It is advisable that files are kept both manually and electronically so that you can always have them handy. The following files should be kept for a project. One, you must have a contract file where the contract documentations are kept, correspondence file where letters are kept, administrative file where the administrative details of the project is being done, technical file where all technical decisions are kept, quality management file where all the old quality management system hangs on, then construction support file where the construction details are kept for the project. And finally, for project management, you must ensure you have the lesson learned register. Lesson learned register is kept to gather all the lessons you have learned in the project. The lesson learned register are experiences gained from executing a project. The lesson learned register should identify and document, should be identified and documented at the close of the project. At the close of the project. Facility project management. Before I start facility project management, I'll go on a short break, and then when we come back from the break, we'll run through facility project management, which is not any different from the body of project management which we have taken, but it's just breaking it down into related smaller facility projects. I hope that's fine with every one of us. Take a short break. I'll be back in the next 5 minutes.
Please.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Facility project management is just about the same thing as project management, but just because facility project management, you're handling this in smaller scale. The facility manager are regularly tasked with the delivery of significant projects for their organizations. This may range from the commissioning of new projects, new works, location of staff to new accommodation, like we did in space planning and move management, implementing new works, working methods, or introducing environmental sustainability programs. To be successful, the FM team needs to apply a structured approach appropriate to the scale of the task or project that needs to be carried out. There is need for a proper project management process that would equip the team with the basic tools to carry out or to control and deliver projects in time with the expectations being met. Who is a facility project manager? Effective management of an organization infrastructure, space, and assets can enhance its operational efficiency. The facility project manager is responsible for the development, the design, planning, scheduling, and management of facility infrastructure projects as it relates to the facility. The facility project managers oversees the construction and renovation of the building. Manages relationship with contractors, controls space allocations, and maintains facility project budget. Every facility will always have a facility project budget. When it comes to keeping facility operations running smoothly, project management expertise is key. The skills that is required from a facility project manager, like we had mentioned before, must have conflict management skill, people management skill, leadership and result-oriented, must also have problem resolution and creative thinking, planning and organizational skill, time management skill, contract management skill, and negotiation skill, because the facility manager will always negotiate contracts and with vendors and from time to time be able to get a good deal for their clients. The facility project management's responsibility is to establish the scope and budget estimates for the project, develop the project schedules, coordinate the works, cost, monitor cost, and review construction. Must also keep the building committee informed of the project process, or the project sponsors must keep them informed. Hire professional movers for occupancy purposes when is required, and provide an overview presentation on the project and a tour of the facility when it is done, assist with warranty and post-occupancy construction issues in case there are any, oversee the many details of renovation and alterations jobs where it is required when the project is done. Must also having customer survey in facility project management. A project closure feedback survey represents a safe vehicle for the project stakeholders to provide their thoughtful input. And the facility project manager is the one that manages that actual communication, that feedback, by administering questionnaires or a form, or write a mail to request that they provide that. The project closure feedback provides the ability to capture the project closure metrics. The survey content may include this following. This is just a sample, what it should look like. The project closure feedback survey should be focused on gathering information from the stakeholders in two areas. Does the project deliver meet the stakeholders' expectation? Two, did the process associated with the completion of the project work meet the stakeholders' expectation? One, did the project meet the stakeholders' expectation? Two, the process in the build-up of the project that they used to complete, the project, did it meet the stakeholders' expectation? Key topics covered within the survey: business results, expectations of requirements, communication, project execution, how it was executed, the overall rating of the project, and the comments. They are just blank areas to just get general comments from the stakeholders, as it were. The business result has the project to product enable the anticipated business result benefit when the thing has been done. We didn't meet with it. Where the expectation and the requirement for the project product well defined and understood on the project team side, and where the requirements effectively implemented, and where the expectations met, the expectations for the client were met. Communication was about the project effective and timely, where the appropriate communication vehicles utilized. It depends on what was stated. Use of emails, WhatsApp, and so on and so forth. Did communication include the appropriate content? What was communicated? Was it included? Did it carry the content of what it wanted to achieve? The project execution, how effective were the process and the tools to complete the project work? Were the appropriate plans in place and the proper guidelines were in place to properly guide the project team through the project life cycle? The overall rating of the success of the project, both was what was delivered and how it was delivered. Then the blank part for the general comments that should come from the stakeholders. Survey distribution. The feedback should be solicited from the key project stakeholders, the people that participated in completing the project deliverable, the people that participated in oversight of the project, that's the steering committee and the project sponsor, the people that provided input from the business area that are impacted by the project, key end users, and subject matter experts that are also part of the project. Why should you measure customer satisfaction? To realize how well you are doing in matching the customer's expectations. Some of us don't like this feedback when we are doing our work, but it's very good. So you know how you are managing the project and how you are even doing. It's like a scorecard for yourself, so you know what to do and how to do it better. You take note of the things that you have done that are done well, and then how you manage it better in coming projects. Also, to identify your loyal customers and find ways of retaining them, to reward your workers and internal organization that contributed highly to the satisfaction, to track process and strategy that helped to satisfy the customer and fine-tune them to also understand the gaps between managers' perspective of the quality given and the customer's perspective of the quality received. Ways of measuring customer satisfaction. Customer satisfaction survey is done. Customer complaints tracking through help desks, tracking repeated purchase through CRM, then looking at social media engagement tracking and online settlement tracking, depending on what works for you and your company. Stakeholders feedback, best practice. So you sit for communication feedback in a timely manner, keep the survey simple, target the right people, and does not need to be conducted just at the end of the project, can be conducted just before the project ends. Also, do some within the information, do something within the information captured. When informations are captured, especially when it is done before the project ends, do something about it so that you can resolve issues that probably would have been raised by the survey before the project ends, so that you can actually get more of the customer's trust at the end of the project. Okay, that's the last slide. Thank you very much. So I'll take our questions now. If you have questions, this is the time you probably ask your questions and I'll answer them. Thank you very much. So if you have questions, just indicate by raising your hand and I'll see that, and then I will take your question. Questions, please. Do you have any question? Okay, I think I can see Innocent raising his hand. Innocent, let's take your question.
Good evening, Mr. Usi.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Yes, sir. My question is centered around quality.
Okay, yes.
From previous classes, we understood that clients determine quality.
Yes.
All right. So as a build-up, if in the process of managing your project, especially
yes,
at the execution stage,
yes, please,
you are very careful not to allow or welcome certain factors because they have tendencies to slow down the project or work on timeline, or tend to have tendencies to slow down on deliverables with respect to the timeline, especially.
yeah.
So a client comes in, and so at what time is it advisable to welcome changes at that time? If clients determine quality and they come in with certain recommendations, so how would you manage that? Considering the fact that it can impede the timeline, it can this timeline can be exceeded, because when you welcome in certain changes at that execution stage, there's very high tendency that you exceed the timeline. So how do you manage that issue?
Okay. If you remember, if you actually started the class with us, you remember I mentioned something about the triple constraint. That's a triangle that has cost, quality, cost, scope, time, and quality all together. There are 4 items.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, at the beginning of a project, there's always an agreement. That agreement is what goes into the contract, where all the parameters are agreed, both the quality, the time, the cost, and the scope of what needs to be done. Once that is agreed, if the client now comes to put any changes into that triangle, whether by tinkling the time, tinkling the cost, or trying to change the quality of others, it will affect the other factors in the triangle. Whilst the client determines the quality, they must also be made to realize the effect of that decision at any point in time. And whatever decision they are taking has cost effect on the project and will also affect the time. It is your job as a project manager to always inform the client of what they are doing. Sometimes they may not exactly know. I don't know if you understand.
Yes.
Yes, you must let them know from time to time. Immediately that change is adopted, a new parameter, a new agreement is now enforced. That parameter needs to be communicated to the client and also signed off by the client, so they do not hold you to the former parameters when they have changed the goalpost. I don't know if you understand and get that clearly.
Yes.
So it's very key for you to do that at every point in time. Once there's any change, document that change, send it to the client for the client to sign off. And then the implication of that change, if it has time implications, state it clearly. If it has cost implications, state it clearly. If the scope has changed, state it clearly so that it is written in black and white and they sign off before you implement. In that way, you are going to maintain the quality that the client will be there. You'll be delivering to the client at every point in time. I hope that's clear.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. Any other question? So, sir, are you still raising your hand? Okay, I think I can see Jude. Jude, let's take your question now. Unmute yourself and talk.
All right, thank you very much. My question is just similar to what the last person asked.
Could you be a little louder? I can scarcely hear you.
Okay, can you hear me better now?
Okay, go ahead.
All right. My question is similar to what the last person asked.
Okay.
A project is at the end of the project, and then the client comes and says he wants this or additional work to be done, but he does not want to erase short. So how do we manage that? Because it's one of the major areas where I'm having challenge now. Doing a project and they're almost at the completion, and then they come to add one or two pictures and say they still don't want any revelation. They still want all of this to be done at the original contract price.
Okay. To answer that straight up, normally when a project starts, there are projects that is called fixed contract projects, where the cost is fixed. But no contract is exactly fixed. There are parameters that determines that. If the client comes and gives some addition or probably make some changes at every point in time, if the project can accommodate it, then go ahead. There are some changes that may come as a trade-off of give or take. Why there are sometimes that some of these changes has serious cost implications. If it does have cost implications, no matter what it is, you must allow the client know the cost implication of doing that. I don't know if you understand. It's very important to do that. So that, and when it cannot accommodate it, please state it clearly to the client. We would love to do this. However, the project cost that we have agreed to will not be able to accommodate this change. So that it is clear, they know exactly where you are going. So that you don't, at the end of the day, run a project and you now run at a loss. Nobody wants to run at a loss. And the client also knows that you are going to make profits. No client that's why to say that you should not make profits on your business that you are running. So it's very important you state it clearly. But what I am trying to say is that at the beginning of the project, you must always state these parameters in black and white, stating that, oh, this project can only accommodate, like, okay, if you sign a project sometime in 2019, let's say in December 2019, before the advent of COVID, and you can see the dollar has moved from that time to where we are now. You don't expect that the project cost that you signed at 2019 will still be the same project cost you'll be doing at 2021. There must be some factors that have changed. Parameter has changed, that's why there are always projects, things like force majeure in projects and act of God or something like that that you can use and ensure that you can actually so you don't run into crisis in the project. So you must always state that at the beginning of the contract, and it must be written in black and white. However, the one you are facing now, you can only plead with the client by letting them know exactly what they are doing, the cost implication, and how it's going to affect the project. And if you are not able to go through, are not able to manage it, you let the client know, and they'll be able to find out and see what they can do about the changes that they are bringing forth. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, you have answered the question. Thank you.
All right. I'm seeing Aziz.
Okay, good evening.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
So I want to talk from a client's perspective.
Please.
That if you give a contract to a vendor and there is you have your job brief from the project brief from inception.
Yes.
And what it's doing for you is not at the end of the day, you may find it difficult to actually maintain that facility, and you discover that you actually need to change some things. Though you had done the job, maybe say you quoted the job for 5 million, you had done the job for 5 million, but some of the things you need to use while you were doing your own snagging are not things you can actually, were not part of what you agreed on. Yeah. They are the same thing. Say for a pipe now that you want to use for your project, you want a pipe that can easily be adjusted when there's a blockage. Maybe you want to use a T, then you use an elbow all through. So you have a timeline to deliver that project. Say you are building a hotel, you have a timeline to deliver the project. Yes. Is it a good thing to tell the contractor that for every day after this date, you pay for occupying my facility?
Okay, let me put it this way. Normally, once a project is to be completed, there's what we call the project liabilities. When you overshoot the project time and the agreed time, there are normally penalties. Those penalties will normally be agreed. The penalties go both ways, both for the vendor and the client. Most of the times, the one that everybody sees is the one that goes to the vendor. If you delay my project every day or every week, you will pay me 5 million naira, you will pay me 100,000 naira every day, this and that and that and all that. That's the liquidated and associated damages that comes to the project. That's good, but there are some times that the client is actually delaying the contractor from finishing or leaving. The contractor too can actually act, especially when the client is making changes. That's why the contractor or the vendor needs to document this. If you have, let me assume, like you have said something about elbows and all that for maintenance purpose, where you can just do that. If that was part of the initial contract and the person did not do it, that's a breach of contract. You can sue the vendor, or you can call up the project bonds, which will always be there, so they ensure that they do it. But if it's not there, you are just introducing it now. You cannot hold the vendor liable. You may need to make some monies available by telling them to price for it and do it, so that you can also finish the project within the agreed timeline that you have. If not, you may need to now give it to somebody else. But it's not always good when you have not even finished the project to get somebody else to come and do what somebody is doing. So it's always better to maintain that relationship and have an agreement, so that your vendor will be able to do what is required at a minimal agreed price, which you must sit down and agree to. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, you have. Thank you.
Yes. More questions, please. Okay, questions. Okay, if we don't have any more questions, I think this would be a good time to call it a day. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your attention in the class, and I hope you have learned one or two things. Please, well, if you have any questions or as you go, please, you can just pass the questions through the backend office, and to get to me, and I'll answer the questions and share to our group for the benefit of all. So thank you very much for your time. Have a good evening, and God bless you.
You too.
Thank
Good
you,
night,
sir.
sir. Thank you very much for the class.
Thank you, sir. Nice, sir.